All right. Good afternoon, good morning, colleagues, joining from across Asia and the Pacific region and beyond. I'm Gunath or Gwen Palmos, a program analyst under the Climate Action Team of UNDP Philippines, where I oversee the circular economy and climate change portfolio. And I'm very pleased to facilitate today's session on metabolic flow analysis for decision making. This is hosted as part of UNDP's regional community of practice on circular economy. So just a bit of context also. So across the region, we are facing growing pressures on our resource systems, driven by rapid urbanization, climate change, sustainable consumption, and persistent waste challenges. Addressing this requires more than isolated interventions, and we call for systems thinking, an approach that acknowledges the complex interconnections between sectors, institutions, and material flows. And one powerful tool and increasingly relevant tool in this space is metabolic flow analysis, or MFA. At its core, MFA enables us to systematically map and quantify the journey of materials such as plastics, biomass, energy, and construction inputs as they move through a defined system. Whether we're looking at a city, a sector, or a national economy, MFA reveals how resources are extracted, imported, transformed, used, discarded, or lost. But MFA is far more than a technical or a data gathering exercise, and we'll hear more about that later on. When used effectively, it can become a tool for decision making, one that allows us to identify inefficiencies and resource leakages, such as materials loss, to unmanaged waste, pollution, and unproductive use. Also, to pinpoint system hotspots and leverage points where targeted interventions can yield significant environmental and socioeconomic benefits, and also to design evidence-based cross-cutting strategies that inform planning, regulation, and investments, ultimately enabling more circular, inclusive, and climate-resilient economies. To unpack the key concepts we'll hear about today, one is material flow analysis that provides the quantitative foundation, tracking the physical movement of materials into, through, and out of a system. It gives us the baseline data to understand volumes, sources, uses, and destinations of materials, whereas metabolic flow analysis builds on this by adopting a broader systems perspective, inspired by the concept of urban metabolism. It connects material flows with social, economic, and institutional dimensions, asking not only what flows where, but why, how, for whom, and with what consequence. It opens the door to analyzing informal flows, consumption patterns, long term infrastructure that locks us into old ways of doing things, and governance gaps that are often invisible in conventional data systems. In other words, MFA is not just about tracking waste, it's about shaping smarter decisions. It allows us to shift from reactive problem solving to proactive systems based interventions. And as countries across Asia and the Pacific region move towards circular and regenerative economies, having access to this kind of structured contextual data becomes vital. Yet too often we lack tools that bridge the gap between material realities and policy ambition. So metabolic analysis offers a practical solution. It helps us align stakeholders across sectors and governance levels by grounding these discussions in common data and shared challenges, illuminate previously hidden flows, such as those tied to informal economies, embodied emissions, or imported waste streams, and also translate insights into targeted action, whether by informing subnational investment plans, guiding industry transitions, or shaping regulatory reforms. Ultimately, this kind of analysis supports not just data-driven planning, but also systems-informed transformation. And that's the lens we'll be applying throughout today's session. So in today's session, we will examine two cases that demonstrate these principles in action. First, from Hue City in Vietnam, where a metabolic study identified interventions that directly inform regulatory and investment planning. Second, from Prague, where material flow data and participatory strategy development helped chart a circular roadmap for key urban sectors. And these cases span different contexts but share also a common thread. They show how MFA can move from analysis to action and from linear thinking to systemic transformation. We request you, also we invite you to please feel free to share your questions, reflections in the chat throughout the session. We will also have a Q&A portion after each presentation, and we'll have an open discussion also at the end. And I'm very pleased to be joined by two distinguished speakers. The first one is Wang Tan Vin, of course, from our very own UNDP regional team from the Asia Pacific region. He is the circular economy focal point at UNDP Vietnam with over a decade of experience in environmental governance. He leads work on waste, plastics, and circularity, including the Hue City Metabolic Study and the National Plastic MFA, which engages a wide range of public and private partners. So very pleased to first turn it over to Vin to bring us into the UNDP's perspective based on the experience in Vietnam. Vin, over to you.
Thank you very much, Gwen. Let me share my screen. Good afternoon, good morning, colleagues. Yeah, thank you for the opportunities for the Vietnam country office team to share our work. And as introduced by Gwen, let me go straight to the presentation. So we're going to share with you two case studies today with the focus on the first case, metabolic analysis to inform CE planning in Hue City. So I'm going to share the first case in in 4 parts: context and rationale, methodology, 14 CE interventions as the result of the study, and then policy inform and key takeaways. So that is for the first case. First of all, the context and rationale. So this slide indicates the UNDP country of Vietnam office vision on the circular economy. So I'm not going into details of this. We'll share with you the slide. This is an overview of Hue City. So the city has been recently upgraded to be, previously it was a province, and now it has become a city directly belong to the central government. So in Vietnam, there are only 6 cities directly belong to the central government. And the city of Hue, 5,000 kilometers square and more than 1 million people. And then the development strategy for the city of Hue as the ancient capital of Vietnam. So this the development focus is very much on the heritage, culture, ecology, environment, and smart urban landscape, which are all very relevant to circular economy principles. And some figures here: GRDP, economic structure, which all are the baseline for the metabolic study. So what is the rationale for us to convince Hue City or the city authority to work with us on the metabolic analysis? So first of all, it has to follow the central government's direction or the country's direction. So as you know, Vietnam started developing the National Action Plan on Circular Economy. So provinces and cities need to develop their own action plan. So that is a legal foundation for the city to start with the circular economy, agenda. And then we convince the government a need for a quantitative analysis and tools to evaluate the different, aspects of the circular economy. What does it mean, and how can it be materialized in a quantitative data? So that is the important part. We discussed, we talked to the local city so that we can we can inform the city with the overall picture of the situation, focus on material flows, which is a key part for the metabolic analysis, and GHG emission, which is a secondary factor that can be integrated and reviewed under the circular economy metabolic analysis. And then the result will inform the public investment in this area. So here is how we start working with the local government and convince the local city to jump in the work on the metabolic analysis. The next is methodology. So what is a metabolic analysis? So this is an innovative approach evidence-based policy making. So this is introduced by Gwen, but the biggest focus is on material flows. So how materials flows in and out and within the economy of the area. So this is what we focus on. And of course, it rely a lot on the data set provided by the government. So we'll talk about this later. So here are the 4 key steps. Firstly, align with the provincial or city's development plan. So very important. Otherwise, we need to talk about their priorities, the government priorities. The second part, data collection, mapping and analysis. Number 3, intervention prioritization. And number 4, policy inform. So here are the timeline, what we have done, starting from February 2022 and completed in December 2023. So almost 2 years for this study. And yeah, I'm not going into detail, but here's some photo. We engage the highest level of the city by our RR, and we signed an MOU with the city on broad area, and the metabolic and circular economy is one important pillar, and then follow with the different engagement process. So here is very detailed. We are now jumping into very technical and data collection and mapping. So I'm not going into details, but for your information, so we need to start working from a very detailed data. For example, extraction and imports of materials, of resources, processing and production, what was happening in the city, consumption process, and then end of life, waste management and discharge. So based on the data collection, we focus on hotspot where CE intervention can bring the reduction of the material loss. So material, so let's focus on everything on material, which is a metabolic, the key, the core for the metabolic study. And here we talk about material category, biomass, methane, minerals, fuels, and waters. So those are areas that can bring the hotspot. And then we conduct the analysis of mass of material and the footprint. And here are the focus sectors, construction material, vegetable, meat, fish, fuel, and textile. And you can see on the diagram. So it is related to the highest mass and the GHG footprint. Next, we conduct analysis on mass of material. So you see here the modeling process where the resource type, the origin, and the final product, basically, of course, the mineral extraction and the construction materials are always, account for the highest part. But then also, like an import and incoming material from other, cities and province as well. And here the study map the GHG emission. And as you can see, the city's consumption, the fuel combustion process, and then land use are among the highest contributor to GHG emission in Hue City. And these lines are very complicated and showing the flow of the material from the source to the final output. So based on the data collection, processing, mappings, we come up with 22 interventions in 6 main sectors, which focus on their potential to 4 categories. Firstly, GHG emission. Second, reduce waste. Next, the water saving, and then contribution to the GDP growth. These 22 interventions then went through the consultation process with the local stakeholders. So step 3, from 22 intervention, we prioritize to 14 intervention after the consultation process. And here are the results of the 14 CE intervention for the Hue City. So as you can see, there are 2 in the construction, 3 in food and agriculture, 2 transportation, 1 waste management, 1 garment textile, and 1 for tourism. And then 4 intervention as an enabling activity for the circular economy in the city. This is an important slide I would like to focus. So when we discuss the intervention and the result with the with the city government, besides the environmental impact, which you are all familiar with, like a GHG emission, reduction, waste, and water. So we also need to highlight the economic and social impacts. And what are the indicators? Here we talk about GDP, impact, GDP increase basically, and then job creation. So these are something that very much attract the attention from the local governments. So besides, we all talk about, environment impacts. In the next few slides, I'm sharing several, but I'm gonna go quickly over some intervention. For example, intervention number 2, we are talking about modular construction capacity as construction contribute to the very high GHG emission and also material loss. In the city, we talk about intervention number 4, organics waste. Organic waste, as a city is very famous at tourism and restaurants, hotels. So emission from organic waste is something we need to tackle. We talk about the green transport, electrify the fleet, which is number 7. So these are an example. So of course, we have 14 focused intervention as agreed and consulted with the local departments. And this is the last part of the CE policy inform and key takeaway. So firstly, as the CE agenda has been promoted over the past few years, so since we started the metabolic study in the city worked on the socio-economic development plan, and we were successful in including the CE principle in this plan. So this is kind of a foundation for the city to continue and expand the CE across the sector. So we say here is a cross-cutting interventions, but very important. Even there are few words in the strategy endorsed by the central government. So for your information, the city socio-economic development plan developed by the city, but approved by the central government. The waste sorting at source is being implemented and aiming to reduce food waste. And then city also support a company to address construction waste as well. So this intervention is related to intervention 1, 4, and 8. Green transport. So where is pioneering in applying the green transport? So they even the city has to wait for the central government to issue the plan, but then the 2 green transport projects have been approved. So this is linked to the intervention 6 and 7. Community-based tourism. So tourism is one of the peak industry or area of the province. So community-based tourism aiming to support sustainable and ecotourism has been endorsed by the city. So this is linked to the intervention 1, 4, and 8 as well. The city established a Hue Circular Economy Hub. So as you may have heard about from UNDP Vietnam, so we initiate the Vietnam Circular Economy Hub with the ministry. So where they also established the provincial or city circular economy hub. So aiming at training and support enterprises in circular economy. So this is a link to the intervention 13. And lastly, $6 million has been invested by the city for innovation and startup. So this is intervention 12. So of course, not all interventions has been are adopted, but basically we can see more than half of the intervention are really informed the policy plan development in the city. So there are kind of many lesson learned. But I try to summarize in 4, and then we can share further during discussion. The firstly is the data, of course, important to have a reliable and accessible data and shared and agree with the local government to prepare to ensure the legal foundation for the result. The willingness to work between different departments, because the circular economy is broad and cover wide areas: transportation, agriculture, environment, forestry, and tourism. So we do need to ensure all local stakeholders. Beside the international partner, which is a ship paradise led by Gemma, which whom some of you might know. So we also need a very good local partner. So here is a Hue IDS Institute of Development Study. They promoted the relevant components and also engaged stakeholders as our key partner in the province. Again, it requires strong alignment with the national CE framework. So we have something at the central level. So it's much easier to implement and deploy activities at local level. So that is a lesson in Vietnam. So here are the complete metabolic analysis you can see and download, also the blog. So Morgan and I are happy to respond to questions later on for this case. So let me jump quickly through the second case. So this is so for the first one is a material flows analysis for all materials in one area, in one city, in one province. So in this one is an ongoing study. So I'm going to share very few slides, focus on methodology, but very focused on plastic. This study has been is being implemented nationwide, and here are the methodology. Basically, we map the flow of plastic flow through the Vietnam's economy. So here's the data from the methodology is much more straightforward than the metabolic study we conduct in one territory. So here is just about the plastic, but the important to obtain all the necessary data and jumping into this in the principle of the mass balance, input and output. So we also measure the input from the import, exploitation, and recycling through the manufacturing and production process, consumption process, and then export, collection and waste treatment. And also one important part is also the leaking to the environment. And here is the type of the output that we try to map, focus on plastic, of course. The methodology for this is for the output. And here the last slide is about how this study is going to inform the policy. Of course, the recommendation and solution is very much focused on the plastic sector only. It's going to show, if I go back to this slide, 2 key areas that we would like to focus is how much plastic leaking to the environment. So this is a big question. We can inform the ministry to manage better the leaking to the environment. Vietnam is still importing plastic waste. So how much plastic waste we need, Vietnam still need to import for production and manufacturing is another answer that we would like to share as a result from this study. So so this will end up my presentation. So basically, we would like to share 2 cases. The first one is for the one city already completed, and the second one is ongoing on focus on plastic. These are all very much useful for the informing the policy and planning. Thank you very much for your attention.
Yeah, thank you so much, Vin, and thank you so much also for keeping up to the time. Maybe just opening the floor in case there are burning questions at this point, but also noting that we will have an open discussion later on. Um, there's none in the chat at the moment, but just wanted to quickly check if there's any from our participants. Okay, Shin, please go ahead.
Thank you, Gwen. I hope you can hear me. Thank you very
Yeah.
much, Vin, for the presentation. It's very helpful and very encouraging to know that Vietnam has done a lot just to understand the landscape of some of the material flows and the key value chains and industries. I'm wondering who sponsored those studies and how much does it cost? Because we previously we had discussions with other country offices who are interested in doing similar studies, but it's also a little bit difficult for us to find the financing source for those studies, because usually I think most of the donors are really interested in what they call concrete interventions instead of just studies and understanding the problem itself. So wondering if Vin could share some of the experience there. And another question is about the data limitation. I think Vin also highlighted that in the presentation. Just wonder how that was dealt with, because we also had issue before, I think, in some of the other countries for lacking of data. And eventually, I think there's always a way to go around it, but just wondering how exactly that was done in Vietnam. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Shin. Vin?
Yes, thank you very much, Sin. So I think our colleagues, Morgan and Ling, can also join me in response to that. But first of all, yes, I mean, the funding for this study is really an important part. For the metabolic study, it is quite, I mean, so this is a really an investment from UNDP to support the city. So we did engage one international partner, the Ship Paradise, led by Jammer, whom you might know, in a contract. And also we need a contract with a local partner to really, coordinate the work in the city with the data collection and also consultation process. And of course, I would like to point out beside these, main engagement. So we do need some other parallel, engagement with the local government through other projects. So yeah, maybe Morgan can share a bit in details, but in general, for the direct cash, we need more than 150K as a direct engagement with these two partners. But we do need also others, kind of co-financing from the local government and also from other funding sources. For example, projects that we implement in Hue City. So that is for the metabolic study. For the plastic material flow, so maybe this is we leverage our collaboration with the Vietnam Plastic Association. So an important co-financing from the association is provided. So therefore, the collection, the data collection and processing is much less, but roughly, I would say somewhere between 50 and 100K is foreseen for this study. In
And
terms of
then,
data, maybe yes, please.
sorry, just to clarify, this was funded by NORAD or Norway.
Sorry.
This was funded by NORAD.
Okay.
Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of funding source, so we mobilized the metabolic study in Hue from the EPIC, the EPIC program that we worked with you with many of you earlier. And then for the the EPIC funding come from NORAD, and then the plastic material flow is come from the collaboration with the Netherlands, the Netherlands embassy.
See you, man.
Sorry, is there anyone who would want to come in? Okay, I think yeah. And Or would you want to continue, Vin, on the data bit?
Maybe over to Morgan and Ling, if you can share a little bit on the data collection and mapping.
Hello, everyone. Yes, thank you. It's really nice to see all the colleagues here again. So yes, I mean, for us in Vietnam, it was really important to be able to work with the local partner because I guess it's the same in many countries, but we know that the Vietnamese government will not consider the reliability of such study if we didn't base the study and the methodology on the national data sets. So for that, that's why we decided to work with our local partner, Hue IDS, which is, as Vin mentioned, a research institute, but also a department within the provincial government. So because of that, they were able to raise the rationale and the objective of the study to the highest level, the Provincial People Committee in the city, and the Provincial People Committee then extended an official letter requesting all the Department of Agriculture, Transport, Industry and Trade to be sharing the data with the research team. So that facilitated the process and helped us a lot. It means that the process was very long. It took us 1.5 years to conduct this study, but that really helped with the collection of the data. So that was the first step. If we couldn't get the data at the city level, we extrapolated them with the national level. And in a few instances, we didn't have the data at national level, so we use international data set. But obviously the objective is to use as possible national data set. So maybe just to respond on this. And then, there is another question from Laos as well, related to the reaction of the city to the study. So maybe just as mentioned by Vin, the purpose of this study was to inform the circular economy planning in a way, and the fact that they have including in the viewpoint, in the objectives, and in many different articles, circular economy for the development of the province, now called city, means that the study was very well received. And then, as mentioned by Vin, and we are about to publish a second blog this week where we are actually saying exactly which intervention are being implemented now. So it's not as straightforward where they took an intervention and they're implementing it, but they're using it either to inform other development partners implementing projects in the area or to inform their public spending. And maybe one more point on the financing, because it's indeed very expensive, the metabolic analysis. It's maybe an occasion to discuss with other donors, like using this portfolio approach where, they might be other donors who are interested in understanding more the GHG emission and the material flow in one location. And maybe you can come up with like co-financing with other donors in order to publish a study that will then inform their development priorities. Thank you, over.
Thank you so much, Morgan, and good to see you again. And again, thank you so much, Vin. I guess we can move to Electra first. I also have my own follow-up questions, but we can take that up also later during the open discussion. So just wanted to introduce Electra. Electra Columbi is a senior expert in regenerative economics with over 15 years of experience supporting systems change across cities and countries. She co-developed the Amsterdam Donut in its circular economy strategy and now leads her own consultancy while working closely with the Donut Economics Action Lab. So Electra will share with us a perspective from outside the region, drawing from her experience in Europe, particularly in Prague, to apply MFA as a foundation for co-creating participatory sector-specific circular strategies, grounded in both data and systems thinking. Over to you, Electra.
Hello, hi, good morning and good afternoon to you. Nice to be with everyone here, and I'm happy to also share some of the work I've done on this field. I'm bringing the case of Prague as one of the cities I've worked closely with while being part of circular economy in Amsterdam. And I'm happy to see also a lot of connections with the work Vin did in Vietnam as far as the methodology that we follow when we bring in a metabolic analysis to develop circular economy strategies. So you can see, I guess, my screen. and I'm going to just a few words where I'm coming from. Since we are talking about circular economy and actually systemic change, I have an engineering background, and I did a study in sustainability and looking there more the social dimension of sustainability, which also helped me to understand how important it is to study systems and have a systemic approach, looking at the big picture and bringing both ecological and social priorities in the conversation when we are designing circular and regenerative cities or countries. So I am working a lot with developing this kind of transformation processes that empower the different actors to understand where they are in the current state, envision where they want to go, and together, working together, create the necessary partnerships to make this change happen. So this is a bit my field of work, and as I said, I will share with you the case of Prague. This is the final picture where we have all signed the commitment of creating a circular Prague. It was about a 12-month engagement, let's say more or less, of working closely with the city, the local government, and different business stakeholders from diverse sectors. And I'll speak a little bit more about the governance. But going one step back to the topic of today, the conversation is indeed how do we use data to inform decisions on a city level, and how do we translate these extensive data sets into meaningful conclusions, into meaningful information. And actually what we call, as Vin also, I heard him mentioning that, what we call the leverage points. So how do we identify these areas of intervention, these leverage points that we can tap into and use to create the largest possible impact? And whether that would be GHG reduction, whether we go from an impact on ecological impact, on reduction of emissions, or more job creation, or more livable environments, we want to identify these highlights, these leverage points. And in this type of work, it's important, as I said, to create a multi-stakeholder approach and bring in different actors together in the room to understand where they are and what's their role in creating the vision they want to have all together. So that's essential elements that go hand in hand, the data translation with the activation of these critical mass, of this ecosystem that is dynamic and interacts. Now, similar to the 4 phases that Vin presented, this is also another example of a methodology that we have followed together with circular economy on creating journeys for cities in this case to develop a circular strategy. So the first phase is understanding the current state, the socioeconomic status quo of the city, looking into social and economic and ecological indicators, and then moving into what we call a more deep analysis of the metabolism of the cities, the material flows, what goes in and what goes out, to really get more nitty-gritty details of where are the biggest areas of loss and consumption. And from there, identify circular strategies and move into an action plan. And if we see it here one more time as a funnel process, imagine it starting from where we are now. What are the different activities where we have a lot of impact in the city? Which sectors have the bigger job creation? Where do we see the most emission consumption production? And from there, we prioritize the sectors with the largest impact, together with the local expert, of course. Then we move to the second phase. On this sector of largest impact, we do this material flow analysis where we see, okay, what materials do you use and where do they go at the end of life? What's the waste of it? And we identify where are the areas again that we have big volumes of material losses. And slowly we start targeting specific areas. We know that we have big loss, I don't know, in biomass, or we have big demand on energy here. And we say, okay, how can I create a circular intervention here? So how can I create circular strategies? Where are the opportunities for circular to close the loop and create a circular strategy? And from there, we draw down to, okay, if we have now selected these circular opportunities, who should take action? How can we create a clear action plan? Which is the team behind it? How do we make it practical? So that's the approach that we used to follow a lot when working with cities. And I will show it also here how it looks like in Prague. So the project of Prague was a collaboration between Circle Economy, an organization based in Amsterdam, and not-for-profit organization advancing circular economy. The Institute of Circular Economy in Prague, another not-for-profit who also was the one responsible for attracting the funding, but also knowing very well the local network and having the connections with the stakeholders we wanted to engage with, and the city of Prague, who was playing a role in supporting and being an ambassador of this work and being interested in receiving the recommendation. So having this constellation that provides as much as possible what we would need, as well as data would come from the city of Prague. So the first phase that we start with, as I said, like the current state socioeconomic analysis would create something like that, very high level, looking at the different sectors, the economic activity, the emissions, as well as the job creation. So from that, getting a feeling of where we have the bigger impact, and you would see that the bigger veggies would come from construction, real estate in terms of materials, energy, water and waste management, as well as we focused also on households as an area of interest for the city of Prague as a separate activity. Yes, and as I said, this is continuously a process that goes hand in hand, the analysis with the validation and the engagement of the actors. So every phase would involve a study as well as workshops. So here is the workshops, the first workshops where we are understanding the highlights of the analysis, and we discuss where do you think are the areas of priority for the city, what is the current political agenda, how can we ride the wave of what is already a priority and set the circular economy as part of the existing priorities, and understanding where are the challenges and the opportunities. And as I said, these are the three priorities areas that the actors landed in. And we moved with these to the second phase, where we did this detailed data analysis with the material flow on the three sectors. And today I'm going to just focus on construction and utilities as examples to show you what this looked like. So on the second phase, the methodology, again, this is quite a craft to create a good data set for a material flow analysis. And you can imagine there are a lot of gaps always. The first starting point would be to gather all the literature and studies that provide information, the most recent information about the city and the specific sectors. we wanted to work with. So different city reports, policy documents, and construction reports from Deloitte, for example, or national level reports that could be having also information for city. Then using national statistics and downscaling them to city level. So different national databases that provide national level data and doing an approximation there. And as well, we use a lot for our general studies XIO base, which is a global input-output tables database. It used to be only for Europe, but now I noticed that it's international. It has general national level data, but again, there is quite some loss of validity and accuracy when we do a lot of downscaling. But this is the puzzle of like meeting all these things, and like with from national and bottom-up city data. Now, if we look a little bit how this looks like for, let's say, the utility sectors, we were visualizing a material flow analysis like that, where you can imagine looking from the left to the right, that this is the input of materials into the sector. And here we see that the main materials coming from utilities is for waste management would be from construction and demolition waste, industrial waste, and municipal solid waste. So here you actually see a material flow analysis of the waste sector. So what waste is produced and where does it go? So this is like the treatment, and here is like what happens with recycling, and this is the byproducts, what happens on the end of life. Just very quickly, I'm not gonna go into the details, but for instance, you could see here an important finding of this study is that 70% of the waste that is being generated in the city in Prague is being exported to be treated elsewhere. So that gives a bit of an idea, and it was also a surprising element for the people to realize the amount of waste being treated elsewhere, and whether there is an opportunity to create more infrastructure, to keep the resources more in the loop within the city, and see whether they could create also circularity to bring them back as primary and secondary materials. So with this study, by looking at the different phases, we would identify areas of opportunity. So for instance, here we notice that there are huge volumes of rainwater and wastewater being received in the city, that a lot of it also from practice, we knew that it's not possible to be treated and there are overflows. So here we understand that there is a pain point, therefore an area of intervention. How can we create circular wastewater management? Also on the collection, how to look at advanced local waste management and improve this opportunity of treating some of the waste in place. Then there were small volumes currently of organic components in the waste. So we understand that there is no recycling of biomass. So how can we improve that? As well as, okay, there are a lot of interesting materials in the waste that could be used as secondary materials. How can we improve these processes? And I will move to the construction. Just again, I'm giving you a glimpse. This could take like 2 hours to really dive deep to the outcomes of a study like that. But in construction, if you look, what's interesting again, looking from the materials that go in, we broke them down to 3 different types of building stock. The residential, non-residential, as well as infrastructure. And then we look at the end of life and we compare the volumes. And in this case, what was interesting to see is that by looking at the materials that go in, we could understand that there is a lot of new construction happening because there was a lot of demand for gravel and stone, which is also what is needed in excavation. So Prague was in a phase of heavy new construction. We also noticed that there is that the larger waste product was concrete and asphalt, so these materials were not currently recycled with methods. They were currently recycled with methods that were not very efficient and of high value, so there was an opportunity there to improve that. And only 10% of materials that are being used currently for construction sector are secondary materials. That means that Prague was using 90% of raw materials for all construction. So there was no repurposing, there was no reuse of the demolition of any kind of waste. It was all being left out. So there was an opportunity there to explore. That was a bit of a breakdown to see again more detail on the type of materials that was coming in to give us an understanding. Okay, this is what you need. That means you're building a lot, but you're not repurposing. What can we do there? So from here and from this extensive analysis, also on the household sectors that I skipped, we moved into discussing, okay, what can we do? Here are some opportunities. And the process of designing circular strategies is, as I said, moving from understanding where are the biggest impacts, figuring out what are the global trends, what others do for circular wastewater management, what do we do with secondary materials, and also meeting these global trends of what's happening around the world with, okay, and where is activity in the city? We cannot bring something that there is no momentum at all. So can we meet those global trends with local interest and momentum to finally land into specific strategies? So that's the process we followed again on a workshop setup. We brought a lot of different varied opportunities and case studies from the world, and also based on their experience and bringing together stakeholders, not only from the city, but also from the sector. So from the construction sector, from the waste management, from the different, also from agri-food, since we were talking about biomass. How can we work with all these different, so bringing those different ideas on the table for circular rainwater management, for advanced local waste management. Imagine these case studies being as a gallery that the stakeholders would look at and vote. So thinking about having a discussion, which of all those feel more relevant for them. And oops, I think I made a little mistake here. Yeah. And just like glancing through them, understanding how they operate in other places, looking at case studies where this has happened, and then slowly moving into, okay, voting which of them are relevant. So again, looking at all these different stakeholders, now coming also people from the sector together with the city staff, together with waste management companies, together with civil society groups, working in the different fields, the three sectors, and deciding which strategies are more relevant and why. So here is how they were prioritizing some of them based on their understanding of the local context, and slowly working on developing from the ideas specific business models or more concrete action plans. So the process would follow by sharing their ideas to the group, and the group would just vote again for which ones they want to take forward. And they would arrive to 3 very clear plans of action that they would take to next steps. So for construction sector, seeing the current state and also the need for a lot of new buildings to come in and the high construction rate, they decided to focus on developing circular tendering criteria. So upskilling the team of the local government and create a group of experts that they are able to set up criteria for construction and renovation that integrate always secondary materials and a certain percentage. So how can we develop that for Prague? And that's like how the final plan would look like, looking at the different necessary actors. So there should be a municipal circular tender team that they developed and identified also specific expert, a circular economy experts as consultants advising this team, and then construction companies to fitting in the conversation about what's possible in practice. And that's the first plan of action that was an outcome of this process. And the low-hanging fruit for them was to apply it in one of the upcoming building renovation that the city of Prague was ready to do, had scheduled to do. And just the steps, looking at time, I'm gonna go a bit faster so that I finish in 2 minutes. And then the next plan for them under utilities was to address the large volumes of biodegradable waste and create a biogas, a biosynergy power plant to create the renewable fuel for urban vehicles. And that was, again, didn't come out of the blue. That was already into a conversation. So again, we rode the wave that was already there and we enhanced it. We strengthened the idea and supported it. We identified who would need to be there and come together in the room to make this biomass to bio-CNG power plant. All the households and food retail, catering industries, the waste management company, also bring in agricultural industry and collection. And this plant actually moved forward after this project. They created the first more detailed technical study, and it's actually built right now. So that was a very clear outcome. But just one pause before I finish, I just try to summarize some thoughts I have about the material flow analysis and what really matters when we do this work. For me, it's important that we do the whole journey. So the most interesting part of these type of projects I've done is when they are not separated in a study here and a study there, but we take it from the beginning, understand, and with a same group of people working from a current state to somewhere where they want to go, building capacity of why circular economy is important and how it links with their existing priorities, and then slowly bringing more people in from the ground and the sectors to build something practical. Coming together in one place sounds very simple, but it's so crucial. I say it again and again, the revolutionary act of such projects is when you bring these stakeholders together that usually never speak, even if they are from the same government, they don't speak between departments. I guess you know it, but hey, that's really important to say it and action upon it. MFAs, this kind of analysis should not be just a report. If you give it as a report, most likely only one person will be able to read it, the one who paid you to do the study. It took us a lot of hours of capacity building to explain this work and make it relevant for people. So the way this is presented and the way it's been explained is much more important than the study itself. And finding balance indeed between the extensive data analysis and when do we stop because we have sufficient information to make decisions? And this is something I notice a lot. There is a lot of budget to make intensive studies that end up into not we know enough often about what is a priority for us and for this place to make decision happen. So feed the study to provide some credibility, but actually the group knows and has the knowledge within them and their experience about where they need to prioritize things. Yeah, meet the people where they are, start from wherever they are and their existing agendas and priorities. So that's a critical point for such studies to be successful. They need to complement existing other conversation, whether it's about climate, about economic development, they need to be connected. And yeah, be patient. This is a process that takes time, but I've seen transformation happening in those groups and in the cities or also national level when there is a continuity and a common group that continues. All right, this is from me. I know we are a little bit over time, but I'm happy to take some questions if there are on the chat.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Electra. And yeah, sorry for rushing you, but I think we need to have a deep dive session also on this. Maybe also
Second point.
requesting the COP to come in. But me just wanted to quickly call in Alex, or Alex Optinenko, the Regional Innovation Advisor, just to offer some few reflections before he leaves for another meeting. Over to you, Alex.
Yeah, thanks so much, Gwen, for prioritizing me. And sorry, colleagues, I need to move to another meeting. And really great to see Dean and Electra joining, and it was super insightful. I have kind of 3 reflections and 3 at the same time. They're a bit of a questions, maybe for you to reflect back to the group. Right. So the first one, while we understand the whole of the picture, I think what is really important is also to understand why. We spoke a lot about kind of what are the preconditions for effective metabolic flow analysis in terms of data availability, in terms of having a good partner, in terms of some of the cost implications. At the same time, I think what would be good to articulate, because we are talking about decision makers in the government, is the question of what particular challenge we are responding to. What would be the particular challenge that metabolic flow is a good tool to respond to, right? Because there are many decision-making challenges that the people in the government at the city level, on the national level, would have. But we cannot throw metabolic flow analysis at everything. So I don't know, Electra and Bean, maybe from your perspective, would be good to say what is the really big challenge, I don't know, that the mayor of Prague had with this circular economy transition, and how metabolic flow was positioned to respond to that, right? And there are different things. There is data, there is the process, participatory, multi-stakeholder thing, and so forth, right? The second thing for me is really important, and this is around, yeah, so what I was interesting also to hear is, were there any areas where you actually were surprised? Something that you wouldn't think that would have that opportunity, circularity opportunity. And the Electra, very nice visualization, by the way. I got a lot of compliments and chats from people. But those opportunity areas, were there any surprises? Something that people didn't know, or something that the traditional data sets that the government wouldn't highlight and wouldn't point to. And the third thing, I think it was really interesting how the decision-making process, kind of a governance of it, was structured, right? So in Vietnam, and perhaps that's reflecting kind of how the policy making is done in Vietnam, it was kind of a directly channeling into the decision-making by the government. While in Prague, for instance, that was more of an open conversation with different parts of stakeholders to actually to pitch and to elect which those priorities would be. So, and I'm curious how that played out and how you also become a position, because some of those circular economy opportunities would have a political economy dynamics, where certain groups would be against actually transitioning to circularity. So in any way either of approaches that you used was more powerful or helpful in terms of overcoming that opposition. I'll stop here, and thanks so much for your reflections and for the presentations.
Thank you so much, Alex, and yeah, thank you so much for extending your time also. And once again, thank you, Vin and Electra. And now opening the floor to the colleagues for any questions, reflections, sharing also of your experience if you've done something related to this also. I know Philippines is currently working on one. So I hope colleagues also from Philippines would be able to share some thoughts on this. But really inviting everyone to please come in and just unmute your mic, and we would love to hear from you. But maybe just inviting Vin and Electra to come in on some of the reflections also from Alex, if you wish.
Thank you, Gwen. So maybe while waiting for colleagues for questions, so I can jump in quickly on the point that Alex share the challenge and opportunities for the local government when we first bring this metabolic study and this study to the policymakers. So in terms of challenge, I think the first thing we would like to convince or to clarify is what is this? Because maybe different with Prague, where the capacity is at a certain level. So the understanding about circular economy is not at a certain level, especially in provinces or in the city, in the local city. So when we talk about circular economy, it's already something new. And now when we bring metabolic analysis, which is something, very kind of confused. And then we need to really clarify and justify the need and the to reach the mutual understanding or at least a certain level of agreement before we can go ahead. Because otherwise, we will need to work closely with the different, stakeholders in the cities to obtain the data. Otherwise, we cannot get any data, and very difficult for the study to come to the result. In terms of opportunities, I think what the policymakers need is something quantifiable. That means quantitative data. So very similar to Electra. So our study also brings, the analysis with a clear indicator. So with this intervention, what kind of measures that the intervention can bring and also beside environmental impacts, we can talk about economic impacts with the two main indicators, GDP and jobs. So these are the things that I think get attention from the local government, especially here in Vietnam. With the development strategy focus a lot on the economic growth. In terms of areas of surprise, maybe Morgan can share, but we talk about at first, so everybody thought, plastic and waste won't be a big problem as a circular economy. But then again, construction is something we found out because it is an area that consume a lot of material and also pose a lot of risks in terms of material loss. So talking about material and circular economy, so this is an area that we found out during our study. Thank you.
Then, if I can just do a quick follow up on that, I also noticed in your presentation that in the 14 priority interventions, in I think particularly in construction and transport, there appeared to show potential negative impacts on jobs. I'm not sure if I saw it correctly. I think there's subsectors there which showed negative impact on jobs. So I just wanted to check in terms of how did you address that? In terms of the strategy development process, what kind of framing or dialogue or strategy did you employ that helped ensure that these interventions were still considered or prioritized despite the trade-off?
Morgan, do you want to respond?
Yes, thank you, Gwen. It's a great question. So basically, if you remember on the slides that Vin has shown, for each of the intervention, we used the environmental criteria, social criteria, and economic criteria. So it means that basically the policymakers are able to assess, like the potential for each of them. So for sure, construction, there will be a trade-off in terms of jobs, whereas promoting circular tourism, we know that it's going to increase the jobs. So we didn't make like strong recommendation in terms of this is the one that you should recommend, yes or no. But we had 2 rounds of prioritization. Basically, we initially had around 27 intervention, and then we gathered together the different departments from the city as well as women's union. So to respond to Alex's earlier point, we didn't have as much external stakeholder engagement as in Prague because it was very much government led, but we did manage to have at least 10 or 12 different departments around the table, and we helped them prioritize those interventions. And we actually didn't impose the criteria either. So they were the ones self-selecting the indicators that we mentioned in terms of environment, social, and economic. So they selected their criteria framework, and then they selected the intervention. So I hope it's helpful.
Thanks, Morgan. And I guess also there could be some measures that we can put in place now to mitigate the losses. Those in the sector can also transition to that new sector being created, or in also other jobs. Maybe that could be the messaging that we can also integrate there, basically the just transition aspect. Just inviting also Electra to come in also on this point.
Yeah, I was also thinking to comment upon the question that Alex brought up about what's the mayor's challenge when you present such work. And yeah, indeed, I don't think a mayor would ever come to tell you, please give me a metabolic flow analysis. Usually I would think, if I would summarize my experience, that you would come in and start talking about circular economy to a mayor that cares about sustainability, but they also want to create a narrative that has a strong social and economic value together. So for me, you start bringing in circular economy to people even they don't know. It also was the case of Prague, by the way. Don't imagine that Prague, when we started that, had a clue what is circular economy. No, there was an interest to create a strong sustainability agenda and strategy, and that was the positive thing from the political side of the local government. There was an ambitious mayor and an ambitious team that was that wanted to create something advanced. But they could also understand that they didn't want to just talk about emissions, or they wanted to create a much more holistic narrative. And there is where circular economy comes in for me, because you can talk about innovation, you can talk about business, you can talk about opportunities for job, new creation, and also at the same time ecological benefits. So it's a narrative that can feed in to people that see all this together. Also, Vin mentioned the importance of job creation, these are the indicators that they would usually look like, an added value. So that's where you would start when you see that there is an open door in terms of an ambitious and a curiosity about sustainability, but also you can talk to them about something that brings all together. And indeed, the policymakers like to base their decisions on facts and figures. And again, there for me, there is always this golden balance of how far do I need to go to create the exact figure? How many hours, how many FTEs do I need to spend to just get a figure? And also creating the right environment and the right capacity of the policymakers to decide that, okay, we know enough to go for it. So for me, there is this act. So yeah, I would definitely recommend using it because it provides this clarity. It also reveals things that we didn't know. When you see them suddenly visually, all this data together, like I said, in Prague, they had no clue that all these volumes of weight would be exported, and there is something there for them that they could make money from, or also use of, also economically and ecologically. So yes, I think it is something to use, but always in the right context, always with the right support, because it's a data-heavy study, and it can create also a lot of fear when you see it. Like it needs help to be to be explained, and also to take place with the data collection. It's intense. Yeah, that is something like it's some thoughts reflecting on what Alex brought in the picture.
Yeah, thank you so much, Electra. I think since we've gone way over time, we may have to close the session, unfortunately, but I think this will also, we may have to consider also having follow-up sessions on this particular topic. Just wanted to thank everyone